A very good evening to one and all who have joined today's webinar. Just to begin with our webinar, or the reason why all of us are here, resource Rethinking Urban Water Future. It's a collaborative design challenge. It emerged from the collaborative initiative Resource Rethinking Urban Water Future. The Jeevajala Jeevanadi initiative was conceived as a community driven movement to reclaim, restore, and reimagine the historic Purnaiha Canal in Mysuru. Rooted in the shared commitment of Water Forum Mysuru, Mysore School of Architecture, Aranya Outreach Trust, the project recognizes water as a living heritage and as an ecological lifeline. This initiative was further strengthened by Bengaluru Sustainability Forum's objective and funding. Jeevajala Jeevanadi integrates the principles of the UN Sustainable Development Goals with the primary focus on relative objectives of SDG 6, clean water and sanitation, and SDG 15, life and land. The realization of partnerships for the goals SDG 17 was further strengthened through active multi stakeholders collaboration and support. And today we have Raghunath sir with us from all the way from Pondicherry. Though virtually we are meeting, it is as though we know him from yesterday. So welcome to you, sir, for this webinar. And we are very grateful that you accepted our invitation to give today's expert talk. Just to introduce Raghunath sir, he has been working in the water sector since 1996, where he worked on the Urani systems of Ramanathapuram, Tamil Nadu, and in watershed projects in Madurai. Later, he coordinated as nodal officer under the European Union supported tank rehabilitation project Puducherry, where about 25 traditional irrigation tanks called as Eris. Sir, am I pronouncing it properly? Eris?
It's called Airy.
Airy. Okay, airy. Yes, we also have similar word in Kannada. Yeah, airy, but maybe the meaning changes. Airy in Tamil was restored through formation, capacity building, and empowering tank users association. The airy systems of the East Coast was very ancient rainwater harvesting structures perfected over thousands of years and managed by the communities. Raghunath sir has also been a science communicator and have been part of several DST, Government of India programs over the past 34 years. Welcome to you, sir. So please, we are really looking forward to listen to you for your contribution towards water and community together. Welcome, sir.
So thank you, and I think for all of those who have joined online. I think it's a honor for me also to be part of your initiative because I think water as a universal solvent, it unifies people also. It brings together people, organizations, and I think with current climate change issues, this has become more of a necessity also. So I will start my talk, community, culture, heritage around water. And so you can maybe put up the first slide, I think, maybe the second slide. Yeah, okay, it's visible to everybody. I hope so. So as I think there was a brief introduction which already told my water journey. Though I was in the people science movement, I worked with the Pondicherry Science Forum and Center for Ecology and Rural Development. In my initial almost 30 years, I worked with the Pondicherry Science Forum doing multiple programs with the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, under the Seed division, and later with the NCST Seed division also, where I had the opportunity to work with engineer Ravi Kumar, who is one of your colleagues. So thank you for inviting me to this talk. So as I said, from 96 to 98, this was an Urni. Urnis are called drink. They are basically drinking water ponds. In Ramanathapuram, they are called Urnis. In fact, in the Ramanathapuram, the terminology varies from Tamil Nadu to various districts of. So I think I'll brief it later. So followed up with this was my watershed project experience, especially which was a NABARD initiated program in Sedapatti, which is one of the most backward blocks of Madurai district, of even of Tamil Nadu also. And followed up with this was the almost 10-year tenure in the tank rehabilitation project Puducherry. So all these major projects which I was part of it was with the Pondicherry Science Forum. We have a under PSF we have a center called Center for Ecology and Rural Development. So most of my learning phase, my projects, all I did was with the Pondicherry Science Forum. That's why in my initial slide I put Aurobindo Society. Though I am currently with Aurobindo Society, I still am a member of the Pondicherry Science Forum, which I am very proud to be, and I continue to be part of the organization as well. So after 2008, all the experience that I gained, all my learnings was resulted into something called the Waterfest. So that is kind of a consolidation or culmination of my work in Pondicherry and Tamil Nadu also. So I was part of the initial Waterfest 2016 along with a couple of other organizations. So and now currently in between there was 1 year COVID year, we never had the Waterfest. So this is the 10th year actually. Otherwise this would have been the 11th year. But 26 we are having the 10th anniversary of the Waterfest program, which we are conducting. So you can go to the next slide, the Urni restoration. Yeah, okay. So I'll give you a very brief outview of what is an Urni. And so Urnis are drinking water ponds in Ramanathapuram. So Ramanathapuram, as you know, it's a coastal district, and because of the proximity to the coast, most of drinking water is saline there. So they had this age-old system called Kanmai. So Kanmai is another word for the Aries. The Airy, which is called as, which in the South Arcot area we call it as Airy, whereas in Ramanathapuram the same systems are called Kanmais. So Kanmai is like the eyelid of eye. That is the meaning. So it's basically semicircular in shape. So Ramanathapuram also has an extensive network of cascade irrigation tanks, which are otherwise connected to the Urnis also. So whenever the Vaigai River had water, the Vaigai River fed all these Kanmais, the irrigation tanks, which in turn filled up the Urnis. So the problem was the Vaigai Dam was constructed. So I think most of the times it's the technology which is a culprit, unfortunately. So when the dam was constructed, the regular flow of water into the Kanmais got affected, and which in turn resulted into not much recharge happening into the Urnis also. Because otherwise, the system is that whenever it rains, so I'll talk about the entire Coromandel course much later. So the problem with the Urni was that in 1970, there was a huge government project because they thought they didn't identify the Vaigai Dam as the culprit. They said, let us do some good project. So they desilted almost all the Urnis in the Ramanathapuram district, and which resulted the one of the very famous NGO which did the project never had any stakeholder consultation. So that is a lesson which we learned. So they never consulted the local villagers. So they went and deepened the ponds. And what happened was the natural clay layer, the pond bottom got punctured. So even though they got very good rainfall, the water did not stay in the Urni. So they were back to square one. So this problem was there almost for 20-25 years. So in 1996, the Department of Science and Technology said, see, there is an issue here. Can you address this issue? So, along with KR Date, I think most of people who are working in the water, they will know the name of KR Date. Sopicom is one of the organizations which are very famous. Joy, Suhas, Date. Date was their mentor and founder, I think. So we worked with KR Date and Suhas and Aniruddhan. So Suhas and Aniruddhan were basically students of Date. So we traveled to Ramanathapuram, stayed there, and we looked at the system, and then we found out that the pond bottoms had got punctured. The clay layers were completely removed. So the key lessons that we learned was that what you should not do in eco restoration programs, like in the name of water restoration, we often do desilting, which still happens. So it's typical project is that whenever government has money, they have a huge project for desilting of tanks and ponds and canals, and they put cement lining to these things. So the natural system by which these systems get restored and percolation, everything gets disrupted. The natural processes gets disrupted. The systems which got perfected over thousands of years gets all of a sudden it gets completely ruined. So through a very detailed process, we managed to restore the Urani. That was a positive thing, but this was a learning phase for us also. So that is what we thought was like local knowledge. It's cumulative because knowledge transfers from one generation to the next generation. It's empirical. They've already gone through these errors and things, so they know what to do and what not to do, and it's already a time-tested process. So that is why we should respect heritage, traditional knowledge, community knowledge as well. So next slide, please. So I think working with legends like Yad Date and all itself was a quite big learning phase for me, because I was also into my early years of my career at that time. Later was the Sedapatti watershed project, where I worked with the NABARD, with the Madurai district watershed management system, where we came across a large number of NGOs who are doing a watershed project. So we had the opportunity to see different land terrains, different systems, hill ecosystems versus plains, and so what works in one system may not work in another agroecological system. So this was one learning that we had. I also learned all the basics of watershed management at that time. So looking at continuous contour trenches to farm ponds to gabion systems, check dams, all those technical details we actually made mistakes, learned from that. So again, I think very close community-led initiative was that the success of the Sedapatti watershed project. So this was a major turning point for me also. So the next was the next slide, please. Next was the tank rehabilitation project, or what we call it as TRPP, Tank Rehabilitation Project Puducherry. So most of South India had gone through the green revolution process. So most of the irrigation tanks, whether it was Ramanathapuram or Tirunelveli or Pondicherry or Andhra Pradesh, Orissa, the entire Coromandel coast has these irrigation tank systems. So they were all designed because of the very erratic monsoons that East Coast receives. So when the green revolution happened, there were very water intensive paddy crops, high yielding varieties which were introduced, and the traditional varieties was basically one crop before that. Before the green revolution, there was only one crop of paddy cultivated, followed by millets, pulses, which mostly will survive with the residual moisture in the field. So that used to be the system. When the cropping pattern was changed from top, introducing high yielding varieties, the irrigation tanks, which were designed for basically 40 to 60 days of irrigation after the monsoon, they were not able to cope up with that kind of a high intensive irrigation requirement. So naturally, the dependence on the irrigation tanks declined, and then came the groundwater technology. You had this diesel pumps were there, then you had submersible pumps, then they have very deep bore wells. So these systems, when they came into being, the dependence on the tanks got declined. So slowly over time, from 60s to the 90s, most of the tanks got defunct. Nobody looked after them. They got encroached upon. Prosopis grew proliferately. So, like what happened was that there was an over extraction of water which was happening through these borewells. Pondicherry being coastline, naturally saltwater intrusion started happening from the late 80s. I think around early 80s itself, was saltwater became intrusion had happened. So all the shallow borewells had become saline at that point of time. So at that point, around 90s, government woke up and they said, "Oh my God! So groundwater is not going to save the agriculture. Entire agriculture will be in problem." So they said, "What will we do?" So at that point of time, the European Union came. They did a very detailed study. WAPCOS did that initial study, and they said the only solution is to bring back the original surface water-based airy irrigation back into that. So that was the project in 1998. Though initiated it, the actual project started in 99. So Pondicherry had about 87 areas at that point of earlier, out of which 3 got urbanized. So Pondicherry bus stand, if you come to Pondicherry, you will see that used to be an irrigation tank earlier. There are other 2 areas. People don't even remember where those areas are there now. Currently, anyhow, 84 areas are there. They are intact, though a lot of modernization is happening, urbanization is happening. Parts of these area systems are still intact. So the project was to rehabilitate all these 84 irrigation tanks, and that was the project. So this was also a big learning phase for me. So before I can you go to the next slide, please? So before I go to what an area system is, why they are called natural heritage structures, why community knowledge is very important, I think we should know this context also. So if you look at India's geography, the governmental context is that most of the eastern coast, if you look at the east part of it, you can see it's in green color. They are very basically plain lands, eastward flowing rivers across the flat landscape. They drain into the Bay of Bengal, and so you can see a lot of waterways. I'll blow up another image and show you in the next slide. There are a lot of waterways towards the end of the Coromandel coast. Coupled with this is the unpredictable monsoons in the east coast. So unlike the west coast, where typically we used to say that monsoons will come in January 1 in Kerala, then it will travel, and I think around maybe it will reach Bombay, then it will reach Gujarat. It never used to be the situation in the east coast. So it's nothing to do with the climate change or something new phenomenon. This has been the trend for thousands of years. So that is why the area systems also got developed. So whenever there is a low depression in Bay of Bengal, which we hear today, that used to be the system before also. Only thing now, there is a change in the frequency of these extreme events. Earlier, every 10 years, we used to get heavy rainfall. So people will say 1951, there was a huge flooding. 61, there was a huge flooding. 71, there was a huge flooding. So we have recorded floodings in the, especially as far as Puducherry is concerned. Whereas currently now it's happening almost every alternate year. Like last year we had a 500 mm rainfall in Puducherry. So because of these extreme events, which are cyclonic storms and rainfall, we need to capture, and the number of rainy days is too short. Normally we get about 45, 50 days of rainfall. That's all in a year. Whereas I think if Mysuru or something, if you take you have a much extended rainfall, which is good for the soil, which is good for agriculture, good for all life forms. Whereas as far as the East Coast is concerned, we never had that kind of an extended rainfall system. So maximum we'll have 45 to 60 days of rainy days in a year. So when it rains like hell. Now let's see, 300 mm rainfall is very usual here. 100 mm rainfall is very usual. Last year we had 500 rainfall in one full day, 6 hours, within 6 hours. So the systems are, the ARES are systems which are created to capture these extreme rainfall events, and along, so basically it slows down the high intensity rainfall, the water flow, the runoff, it slows down, and it captures in semicircular huge water bodies, and they form a cascade of tanks. So basically they are tank cascades as they are called. And so when one tank in the upper region, when it gets filled up, there is a surplus weir which is connected to the feeder of the lower tank. So water is filled up one by one by one, and by the time it reaches the Bay of Bengal, it would have already filled up thousands of irrigation tanks. So you have water storage which will get stagnated in those water bodies, and they will slowly percolate down. So the process used to be like the areas will get filled up first, then you will have water in the open wells for another 2 3 months. Even after that, you have shallow wells. So say about 40 feet, 50 feet shallow wells will be there. They will have water. So the water availability, though it is fully dependent on the rainfall, which is quite adequate, because our annual rainfall is about 1300 it's quite adequate. It was more than sufficient for any practical purposes till the green revolution, when the 3 crops of paddy were introduced. Everything was going very smooth. Uh, that is why these traditional systems are quite brilliant systems, and that's why in the 1990s government thought, okay, now our groundwater situation is pretty bad, so we need to go back to those traditional systems. So thousands of years of perfected systems. That is why the ARI system emerged as an elegant solution to extreme rainfall patterns. So can you go to the next slide? I'll just show you the general terrain where you can look at the coastal sea is there. You have backwaters which are semi-saline, estuaries, lagoons. Then you have inland water systems which are ABs and ponds, and so they are innumerable in numbers if you go to any coastal districts of Tamil Nadu is concerned. So this will give you a basic idea of how water rich we used to be, even though we are very close to the sea. Okay, next slide. Now, even the next slide, please. So, okay, this is the historical Coromandel coast. So this map is dated about 1924. Okay, the Survey of India 1924 map is given here. Even here you can see quite number of water bodies there, and you can see huge sand dunes. So these sand dunes used to be the buffers. They used to collect water, rainfall, and then recharge the pond systems in the neighborhood. So just to give you an idea of how historic these are only the old almost available maps of this region as far as we know. Okay, next slide. Now, this is a famous book, The Tanks of South India. If you look at that figure, I think this is a famous book by Vaidyanathan. The Center for Science and Environment brought out these books. So you can see those semicircular small shapes, which are all water bodies. So you can see they are all basically contour, kind of continuous contour trenches. Okay, though their dimensions are very big. And most of these things are parallel to the flow of water. You can see those water lines coming down and perpendicular semicircular systems which are collecting water. They are called the tanks. So basically the functions of an area is to slow down the water flow, because the rainfall can be very extreme. It increases the percolation to the shallow wells and ponds, extending the availability of water across the year. It arrests soil erosion, because the minute you fail in controlling this water, it can result in huge soil erosion, flooding. So that is what currently is happening, because the modern technology has forgot all this traditional knowledge. So we have urban flooding, which is an artificial phenomenon. I think you are thinking of urban water systems also. So I think if you learn from our history, I think you can learn quite a lot. And of course, irrigating the lands also was one of the functions of the Aries. Though today we call it as irrigation tanks, that was just one of the functions, because imagine 1,000 years back, we never had that kind of a rice production, or the population was very little. So tanks had many other roles, and one of the role was irrigation, so storing the water. So they learned that, okay, you can have sluice systems, gates which you can open and irrigate your land. So there's a whole lot of irrigation engineering, which is again a traditional knowledge system, which evolved along with the water management wisdom of the past. Uh, so apart from the above, ARI also has other ecosystem services, as well as including food, water, local weather control, flora, fauna, and livelihood. So there's something called tank usage rates. So this has been very properly recorded also, even from the Chola periods. We have the Mulanadhar temple in Bahur, which is an 8th century Chola temple. So where there are stone inscriptions which give very detailed accounts of how to manage the tank use of the trees and the fish culture, and the tank silt, how you should remove it, who can use it, how the potters can harvest soil from that thing. So there's a whole lot of ecosystem services tanks offer, and it's nothing new. It's very old knowledge. So there is a variety. Like when you said ARI system, there is system tanks as well as non-system tanks. Now, non-system tanks are standalone ARIs where just the rainfall and the whatever rainfall in the catchment, it gets uh, filled up in a small tank system, and that's all. It doesn't overflow into a lower tank, because maybe the terrain in such a way that there may not be a flow which is downwards. So they are called basically non-system tanks. Whereas wherever there is a flow line, it gets cascaded into a lower tank and a lower tank and lower tank. So it goes like that. So the right way you can see the Puducherry region. So all those blue dots are basically irrigation tanks. So it's not only Pondicherry, it's Tamil Nadu also. So Pondicherry itself is about 290 square kilometers. It's a very tiny bit of land, and we have 84 tanks and almost 1,000 plus pond systems within this small area. So you can imagine a place like Tamil Nadu or Andhra Pradesh or Orissa, how big those systems will be. You can it's just a matter to imagine. Okay, next slide. So one of the traditional system of, so how these large systems were maintained. Okay, imagine 1,000 years back, did they have a PWD? Did they have civil engineers or irrigation engineers to manage this? So it's a very interesting question we should ask ourselves. So the annual maintenance of these ARI systems were done through a system called Kudimaramattu. Now, Kudi means citizen. Okay, the meaning of word, I think this word is quite common. Like Kudi is a household. Kudi means household, actually. So in multiple languages, it may have the same meaning. So Kudimaramattu system we have written records from the Chola period. So whereas even in Sangam literature, there are references to the Aries and Kadmai of the Tamil Nadu region, of the South Indian region, because those days there were no Tamil Nadu or Kerala. So it was generally that region. So Sangam literature has very detailed description of how Kanmais or how water bodies of this sort can be formed, where should the water surplus sphere should be positioned, how to observe during the monsoon and decide where should be the lower sluice. So there is Mettu Madagu, Palla Madagu. So these are names for sluices. Madagu is sluice. Sluice is kind of a gate through which you can open a irrigation tank and release water into the command area of that particular tank. So you have Mettu Madagu is an upper sluice, where if by topology, if there are lands which are higher in area, you have an upper sluice. So they get the first priority. So when the upper sluice is opened, at that time the lower sluice is not opened. So water flows only through the upper sluice to those fields which are higher in elevation compared to the lower lands. So though they are plains, there will be still be about 30 centimeter, 60 centimeter elevation differences as far as the terrain is concerned. So the tanks Lewis's were designed that all pieces of land which is below the tank gets water in a equitable manner. So that was called the Kudimaramato system. So the annual maintenance. So there is a very interesting inscription in Bahur which says that every household, if there is a male between 8 to 80 years, they should do manual work for the maintenance of the tank. So there is a return rule. So in case if they are not able to do a work, they can do a compensation in terms of gold, and they said so many milligrams of gold can be given as compensation. There was a penalty for those people who do not do that, because I think social boycotts and other systems were also there. And they had a Neerkatti. Neerkatti is a person who is a water distributor for every tank. So they are appointed by the community. Community will have a Neerkatti who will decide how the water is to be distributed from the tank. So, so they were very excellent systems, traditional systems. So every tank will have a stone pillar near the sluice. They are basically planted near the sluice, and looking at the stone pillar, the Neerkatti can assess how much water is there in the tank and how many days of irrigation it can sustain. Okay, it's a very interesting knowledge system. So when we had the TRPP project, the tank that we still had a 97-year-old person who served as a Neerkatti in the old French regime. So he was still there. He was the irrigation engineer, as the French called him, but whereas the Tamil name was Neerkatti. So he used to say, like, if it is 3 points above the water, it means it's for 30 days. So if it is 4 points, it will 40 days. So depending on the number of days, they decided what variety of paddy is to be planted in the command area. So you should also remember that Tamil Nadu already had about 1,000 varieties of paddies, native varieties of paddy, and depending on the water availability, they will decide which varieties to be sown. So they need to sow the seeds, then the nursery has to come, then they will do the transplanting, and so the entire calculation they do by looking at the water level in the tank. So this was the amount of wisdom, the amount of what you call simulation or modeling in the modern time, which we call, they were able to do a Neerkatti. So he's such a wise person in the community. And interestingly, most of the communities had a Dalit person as the Neerkatti. So you should also imagine this entire caste issues had come maybe very recently, we don't know. But we found that most of the cases, it used to be a Dalit family who never did any agriculture, but he used to get his paddy share depending on the farmer's extent of land. So if we had 1 acre of land, he will get so much land as an annual fee. The Neerkatti will be paid according to that. So this is the amount of engineering and planning and their what you call the ability to decide as to collectively decide as to what can be grown and what cannot be grown. So I think that is what we should learn from our history and from the community's knowledge also. So going to next slide, please. Am I taking too much time? So
No, sir, please. It's very
okay,
interesting. Please, sir.
okay. Now coming to the traditional part of it, what we see is that most of the area also had a deity. Okay, there is to be an INR or there is an Eri Amman. So it's called Eri Amman Koil or INR Koil, things like that. So they were basically protectors of the water body. Now the question is, do gods really protect these water bodies? That's a question we should think. But what elders say is that whenever you have a temple, people don't use it for any other so bad purposes, like or drinking or alcohol or something. Of course, the current situation is completely different. Currently, whenever you go to an area or a tank bund, they are the most scenic spots where you can get drunk and no, relax. So earlier that never used to be. So whenever you have a temple there, people think it as a sacred spot. So most of the areas had their temples also. So small temple, there will be a small deity there, and they used to offer some offerings they used to do. So this photograph which we show is the water festival which we did in 2016. So when we said why not we celebrate water, we said no, no, we should start it from the temple. So they took a pot of water from the area and then they offered it. So they said this we used to do it earlier also. Before they start the cropping season, they used to offer worships at the temple. Simple things, what as per not a very not with firecrackers or loudspeakers, or I think currently the modern temple festivals are quite a aberration of what it used to be earlier. So uh, I think we are now manufacturing new cultures and traditions which never used to be there before. So it's very interesting to note all these things. So and we also have a river festival in Bahur. So the same Bahur where it used to be the Chola capital, which governed almost about 32 villages across around Bahur. So Bahur used to be the Mandalam. Mandalam means the capital of the Cholas period at that point of time. The combined Arcot, South Arcot, North Arcot district. I think Bahur used to be the capital. So it's very interesting now. So even today we have the remnants of those things. Whereas on January 18th of every year, at the last day of the Pongal, we have the river festival, or it is known as Atu Tiruvizha, where deities from as far as Tiruvannamalai or even near from Vellore, they used to come to Bahur on that particular day, and they will camp at the riverbed. They offer their prayers and then they go back. It's a huge festival. Currently, I think last year we had about 2.5 lakh people coming on that particular day, and you can see people coming from. So from generations they have been coming here. We have deities coming from Tiruvannamalai and far off places like Kanjipuram and many other districts. They all come to. So that used to show the outreach of this Bahur town and the Bahur area and the water systems, which is because Atu Tiruvizha is related to the water as well, because it's on the Purnaiha River basin, uh, Purnaiha River bed. This whole thing is happening. Now, currently, with the over exploitation of groundwater, there is over mineralization of groundwater that is happening, because in Pondicherry, we have been 100% groundwater dependent for the last 30 years now. For all our drinking water, for all our agriculture purposes, we have been relying completely on groundwater. And now, currently, we are tapping into about 400 meters down. The aquifer is 400 meters down, about 1,200, 1,300 feet below. So the TDS levels are almost 3,000 at many places, even higher. We have huge levels of iron, calcium, manganese, uh, uh, heavy metals. Some places heavy metals, so they are actually closed down. And now they are many of the entire city now there we have RO units. So the PWD is operating reverse osmosis plants, and water is being sold for 7 rupees for 20-liter cans. It should have been given free. PWD, I mean, government is supposed to give free drinking water to all the citizens. And that is one of our demands this year. So since elections have just been announced yesterday, Pondicherry Science Forum and the Alliance for Good Governance, we all have come up with a election manifesto also, where it says it's a fundamental right. Drinking water is a fundamental right. So, okay, we are not even talking about other animals, birds, and flora, fauna, but at least this should be made. So, this is one of the demands of the water festival as well. So, which I'll come to a bit later. So, what I was trying to say is that there's a renewed interest in the surface water bodies, because so far we have been thinking this groundwater is it's an infinite like resource, and you can keep on pumping water as long as you can, multiple 24/7 you can keep pumping. If it is not 300 feet, you can go to 400 feet. So it only depends on how much money you have, so much deeper you can go. But now we have almost reached the bottom. The water quality is deteriorated so much. I think there are huge issues of kidney stones and other non-communicable diseases, though it is not directly correlated to the drinking water. People still believe that the water taste has got very bad. So those who can afford, they buy the RO water, but otherwise they end up doing the municipal water, which is very high TDS, highly mineralized water. So that is why where you need modern stewardship for uh, if you want to meet the future requirements. So as part of the TRPP, we had rehabilitated all the 84 tanks, and most of the tanks we had doubled the water holding capacity, because when I say in 99, 2000, when we started the project, these tanks were totally neglected for almost 50 years. So they all the tanks had desilted up completely. Like many tanks we couldn't even identify. So we had to resurvey and do reinvent the areas in many places, because they were huge tracts of land. So the benefit is that the revenue, the tank user rates have multiplied like anything. So the Bahur tank every year before the TRPP, it was going at 50,000 per year. Fishing rides were going at 50,000 per year. Currently, the auctioning rates is 20 lakhs. I think that was last year. This year, for 3 years, they have taken it for 72 lakhs. For 3 years, they take the auction completely for 3 years, which is 72 lakhs, which is translating about 24 lakhs per year. So that is the revenue tank user flex which is being generated from the tank rehabilitation project. So it's not just water. See, water is just one element. Irrigation is just another element. But uh, I think the future of civilization now they rest upon rainwater harvesting. So uh, thousands of years back, I think communities have understood this whole technique of how you conserve water when it rains, because you may not get water after the following months may not have not a single drop of rain. So when it rains, you have to capture it and store it. So that wisdom we need to reinvent now, or we need to bring the state into having plans along with the communities to take up such joint programs. So that is what is required. Now, when we were rehabilitating the water bodies, we also realized that we need to rehabilitate these channels also. So it was very interesting to note about the Purnaiha Canal, which you have mentioned. So similarly, we have something called Bangaru Channel. Bangaru Channel is a 13.6 kilometer long channel, which takes, there's an offtake in the Pennayar River. The channel brings water to almost 30 to 25 to 30 tanks. Plus, finally, it fills up the Bahur tank itself. So this canal, we had rejuvenated this canal along with stakeholders, and we formed an association also. So it's called the Bangaru Vaikal Niradhara Kootamaipu. So if you Google Bangaru Channel Association, you will see very interesting information that, because it's a very active association even today, though the TRPP got closed in 2008. The association is still very active. So it's a collective of farmers, and some of it are also connected with the Puducherry Science Forum. They have gone to the court. They have brought the state onto their knees. Like many of the anti-ecological projects, they have stopped. There was a famous NGT case which the Bangaru Channel won against sand mining from the riverbed. So that is the kind of extent you can do if you opt to work with the communities. So next slide. Maybe I'll finish it with this. Uh, the last, yeah. Looking forward. So if you have to reimagine urban water systems, I think the whole rural-urban divide is almost gone now, because there is no place where there is no mobiles can reach. So I think what defines urban from rural is only uh, in terms of the quality of life. I don't know. We need to redefine this entire urban-rural divide and the water systems as well. So one of the interesting factors in this whole journey which we had was that the role of women. So the Bangaru channel itself is named after a woman called Bangari. So there were Bangari and Singari. There were two sisters in Bahur. So the Bangari sister dug this entire channel, which is about 14 kilometers, to bring water into the Bahur tank. So though she wanted to bring water to the Bahur tank, it filled up all the tanks in between also, the Ulleripettu, the Manamedu tank, Kadvanur tank. So there are multiple tanks in between. They all got filled up and finally it reached the Bahur tank. So that is known as the Bangaru channel. Uh, if you look at the Usiteri, the largest irrigation tank of Pondicherry, it's named after Usi, which is another woman. And if you look at the Pondicherry emblem, which is the uh, woman with the pot, she is the Ai and named after who built the Ai Kulam, which brought water into the heritage tent when the French was ruling in Pondicherry. So that is why I think you have to have women as main drivers in this entire journey if you want to protect all the water resources. And unless women are there, I think any movement will tend to take longer times, or maybe it may not reach its original objective. This is what we strongly believe. So even the Waterfest, we have huge women participation. We make it into a point also. Women participate as SHG women and school girls and college youth. So we have youth engagement programs. We have women SHG livelihood programs which are happening. So that make it into a point that you don't leave the our better half or even uh, a good part of the population. There has to be a new focus on the rainwater because the rainwater patterns have changed. The rainfall patterns have changed. So your strategies also should change. Though Pondicherry has about 1,300 millimeter rainfall, uh, the traditional water systems may not be efficient because most of the systems have disappeared. The canals which used to drain water has disappeared. The drainage, the stormwater canals have become one with the sewage canals. So how do you differentiate between sewage canals and stormwater canals? So how do you do a re-engineering of all that? So that will be a major challenge that we'll have to do. Currently, we do a lot of SEPA workshops. So SEPA is communication, capacity building, education, and participation. So this is a SEPA strategy, I think, which has been formed for all the Ramsar sites. So I think there's a handbook available also. Otherwise, I can share it with either Ravi or Champa. There's a SEPA strategy now. It's not just making people participate or making them aware or something. They have a lot of power within them. But how do you collectively dream and collectively plan uh, sustainable systems which are resilient systems in for future? So I think that is where you need to have community ownership of any things, even if they are very small projects. So I think I'll finish it with like water regime must inform zoning. So you need to have proper zoning, planning, infrastructure. With proper planning, water becomes a blessing. That is water security. Without it, it becomes a curse. So whether it will result in floods and droughts. So we always blame the water for it. So like urban flooding. It's not flooding. They are basically artificial results of what we did wrong. So it's high time that we should start correcting it. So that is where our Waterfest, with the 10 years of Waterfest, have taught us, which we are trying to bring all the civil society groups, people's action groups, all the government departments. So it's more of a constructive platform. Waterfest has a constructive platform. Though we do advocacy, we do fighting. Outside that, in Waterfest, we all come together for collective action. So that way, I think it's very positive. Looking forward to joint action by all stakeholders. So that's it. I'll finish my presentations here. I know that I have not given much enough justice to the entire themes that you had asked for, but if any questions are there, I'm happy to. I'll try to answer them, please.
Thank you very much, sir. It was really, really interesting, to know about so many traditional system in Tamil Nadu and the work you people have been doing. I think myself might take quite a bit of questions. I just want to know this traditional system is still valid till today. But then why
It's
is that? Yes, yes, sir.
it's more relevant today. It's more valid now because see, these areas are basically climate change. Okay, in the modern terminology, they are climate change mitigation systems. Okay, when you have extreme events happening in other parts of India, we always had this extreme events. Only thing, we used to have it once in 10 years or 15 years. Currently, now we are experiencing it every 5 years or every alternate year. So they're very relevant systems which become now. I think the relevance is getting translated into other areas as well. It's going beyond the Coromandel coast to other areas because I think even Bangalore or other areas also get extreme rainfall. Bombay, every year it gets flooded up. So what is, we should start looking at systems.
Now I have three questions as part of that only. But why
Yeah.
is that government had to intervene to safeguard this? Because it was the people who had integrated this into their system. Okay, so then why did we lose out on this knowledge? And then, the government had to sort of like come and intervene.
As I told you, I don't know whom to blame. See, one, why the systems got neglected, because airy or the water bodies are huge land parcels. Okay. In modern land value, they are huge money. So you do an industrial estate there, or you construct a medical college, it's more money, it's more business. So, no, there is a very famous quote which we used to laugh at: more crop per drop. No, this was a slogan, I think, about 10 years back or 15 years back. I think Government of India something. So this is like more money per piece of land, per square feet of land, or maybe square inch of land. So most of water bodies got encroached upon by the government itself. Now, if you look at the Pondicherry Government Medical College, the Rajiv Gandhi Medical College, it's constructed inside an irrigation tank, Kanaganeri. Now, if you look at the huge sewage treatment plant, there is an STP plant which is again constructed in the same Kanaganeri. Why? Because you don't have land otherwise. And the systems fail because the STP will not function. So when it overflows, it flows into the water, the fish will die. Some people also die, but I mean, why is it like only people die in indoor? It becomes an issue. People died in Pondicherry also just 3-4 months back of pollution, of sewage mixing up with drinking water. But whereas small towns, things don't get reported. Whereas Indore is the cleanest city of India, it gets reported. Whereas these issues are there everywhere. I'm not talking about Indore or Pondicherry or Karnataka or other state. Issues are there everywhere. How do you prioritize those issues is what matters. Now, the positive thing this year is just maybe, I don't know, we don't know whether it is the election part of it. The government has come up with a proposal to uh, desilt. I think the word is very dangerous. Desilt all the 78 areas of Puducherry. So this is what I said, like this is one mistake which we learned in the 96 when we went to Ramanathapuram. The government is going to do the same project. Is community part of it? Is community being roped in as
Yes.
partners? That is a big question. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, those were actually you answered my questions because I was going to ask you, is urban planning, did it really include this information into regional planning and master plan? And I think you already answered. I think ignorance is one thing, and the continuity of the traditional knowledge which has gone missing are the main things also.
See,
And
it's
also, I
not
was going to
ignorant.
ask you,
They are
yeah,
conveniently not looked into. That's the word maybe you should use.
yes, sir, Ravi sir has something. Yes.
Yeah, I think Raghu, one more issue was that during the colonial period, They, the colonialists, they wanted control over the system. In the name of modernization, the public works department was built. So,
Correct, correct.
up the and lining of the canal and all, talking about increasing the efficiency. So, this is to the domain of people, the management of system. But the surprising thing is, in Tamil Nadu, it lingered for a much longer time. The influence was less. So, even the
Yes,
last find in Tamil Nadu rather than other places, except in some remote places, even in Karnataka.
correct, correct. Yeah. So French was a bit better because what the Kudimaramatu system, they came and learned about it, and there was one engineer, I think his name was I don't know, it's a French name. So he was asked to come up with how do you modernize the systems here. The French engineer came here, stayed here for 6 months to 8 months, and then he gave a report saying the system is excellent. You don't have to do anything. You just continue the system. So what they had done was they institutionalized the Kudimaramatu system. So they brought in something called Syndicate Agricole and Case Commune, which are like institutionalizing. So the role of PWD was to prepare budgets. Okay, exactly the same words. They will prepare a budget in consultation with the communities. They will sanction the budget, and the work will be done by the community. But they need a system where they will prepare. So basically, kind of institutionalized, okay, proper records. So they even brought out irrigation maps. So I think I could see in one of the villages, I could see that one of the irrigation maps, which were color coded maps. So which will, I think, the first water release will go into the tail end land. So
In fact,
always the irrigation started from the tail end piece of land, and then they will come up. So I think they were had very great detail about these systems also. Otherwise, the tail end farmer will never get water. No, by the time it reaches there, all the upper land farmers will block it and divert and all that. So, but here we saw maps which were very detailed.
so this modernization was very compatible. In fact, it enhanced the capability of people, isn't it?
Yes, 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 correct.
And the other thing I noticed is that these systems, they simulate natural processes. So for that,
Correct. Yeah.
sustainable.
Yes, yes. Now there is a renewed interest, see, because when you are left with no other choices, the only you have to, because Pondicherry is also union territory. Tamil Nadu, why should Tamil Nadu give water to Pondicherry? Because you have two different engines. No, it's not the double engine government in Tamil Nadu. So Tamil Nadu will say, why should you give? Why should we give? Like Chennai can get water from Viranam, from Kadalur district. But Pondicherry, nobody will give water. Even if it is there, you will have to pay a huge price. So currently, we hope the government is interested and they are going in for the rehabilitation of the tanks again. So there is some hope. So I think Water Festival is also to continue this hope year after year and to engage with them. So that's why I said it's a very constructive platform where we work with the government also. We do programs, we invite them into presentations. We ask, make them, we force them to listen to the communities, things like that. It's a very interesting process. Some people say, no, no, you're working with government. It's not that, when you get compromise, all these arguments are also there. But unless you engage with them, how do you even bring about a change? That is the point.
Anjali, you may please unmute yourself and ask questions.
Okay. I mean, it's a rather longish question, so I thought maybe posting it would be better. But anyways, I can read it.
Sure.
So, yeah, thank you very much for your very detailed, insightful, and I would say very hopeful presentation. Now, I mean, I think a lot of these things you have also discussed, and as you said that probably more time is needed. But I just read out my question. How does this shift from rural to urban land use allocation affect the governance, and the care part, the stewardship of tanks, and nalas and the wetland infrastructure? I think it's a pretty common thing within the South Indian Southern Peninsula region, as well as, as it goes towards the Ghats. Now, specifically when the rural commons, the land use, the ninefold land use, which sort of gets absorbed into the urban norms and frameworks, and the local custodianship and ecological continuity sort of disrupted.
Correct.
And I think the most difficult or challenging aspect is how do you organize the citizens around, to reclaim, that agency. And we don't have enough mechanisms. So what kind of mechanisms, like I think you mentioned C-step framework, I'm not sure. You mentioned okay. Yeah, so I mean, I think there is a lot of lack of awareness about what are the available mechanisms which might help us to bridge these gaps between public communities and the rural urban authorities. I think Mysuru, to a great extent, that gap is much larger, where the handholding between authority and the public is not yet articulated very properly. And like, for example, in case of Purnaiha Nale, the Mysuru master plan, its very existence itself is omitted. It's
Okay.
not even read as a continuous element in the master plan. And in such a scenario, it becomes very difficult to even bring it into the purview of, I mean, like we cannot even ask for, authorizing its presence, or, removing the encroachments or stopping it being encroached. So it's a very challenging scenario here. I'm sorry for taking so much time, but yeah, I think
No, it's okay. See, so there are multiple, I think you had to ask multiple questions. So I will see one thing for Karnataka, at least you have elected panchayats, right? Yeah. So whereas
yes, yes.
For Pondicherry, we don't have an elected panchayat. So that is even more challenging for us. So most of these cases, supposing if you are ready to go to a court to file a case against, like, this canal has been existing for so many years, most court information, they will ask for data. Okay, one initiative that which we are doing here, though I didn't explain it much, but one of the Waterfest initiatives is citizen science initiative. So we have multiple baseline data which we are generating in terms of flora, fauna, in terms of the bird biodiversity, dragonflies, damselflies. So we have multiple data being generated by through citizen science initiatives, where we try to bring generate baseline data. So, and supposing if you have, do you have BMCs, like biodiversity management committee? So I think they are a very strong possibility. If you have very active BMCs, they can record their that biodiversity register and becomes a valid evidence before any court. So BMCs, if they authorize any particular data in terms of natural heritage or say flora, fauna, natural systems, water bodies. So one is the wetland authority, one is the biodiversity management committee. These two are very powerful. Of course, there is the third one is the Gram Sabhas. The Gram Sabhas, if they pass a resolution, it has got very strong value. But Pondicherry, unfortunately, we don't have any of these systems. So we don't have elected panchayats. We have the BMCs for namesake, but they have never met. Citizen science data, we are generating data now, and these are like eBird or something which are uploaded into the clouds. So whether you have eBird, which looks at the bird data, iNaturalist is looking at the flora, fauna. So we do water quality monitoring also. Since the Waterfest 25, we have started measuring water quality parameters also. Year to year we are managing. So like supposing if last year the TDS levels of a particular lake or BOD, the biological oxygen demand, was so and so value, this year has it changed? Whether there is any new source for pollution happening in a particular water body. So once you start monitoring all these things, it becomes evidence, it becomes baseline data. and which you can use it, say if there is a collective. See, there is also a reason why we go as a collective. There is something called Alliance for Good Governance, which is a collective of multiple organizations. The minute you are one organization and you file a court case, you will get victimized, you will get cornered. So whereas if it's a collective, you are much more stronger. So that is where the art of negotiating with the state, with the government, is what matters ultimately. So you should engage with them constructively. If you need to tell them also. You should tell them what you are doing is wrong and you should change your thing. And if more people, more organizations, more uh, multiple stakeholders find this, it becomes much more strong. I think no politician will ever want to get alienated in this process. That is what we learned. So that's it. I don't know if I've answered everything, but I think that will be the direction forward. The Bangaru Channel Association also is an example of that. They have done programs with the government departments. They have filed cases in a National Green Tribunal. They have won cases, and there are still cases ongoing. So government also knows that. They know that, okay, these people are good, but they are also, they will not keep quiet when we do something wrong. And most of development planning happens from top down. So these things happen. So there will be a point of realization by the government also that, okay, these people cannot be taken for granted. Okay, the more informed you are, the more collective you are, the more strong you are. That is, I think I can put it shortly, though it's not, it's easy to say, but not that easy to implement. Correct? So land use, land things are changing. So we can't do much of it because there are central government projects, there are national highways cutting across water bodies. So where do you go and fight? So there are challenges, larger challenges. Things are happening sometimes irreversibly. So you still fight for your rights. That's all I can say. Anjali, I don't know if I answered your question.
You definitely, I mean, you've built such a positive, sort of, yeah, I think
So
atmosphere here.
don't
Yeah.
lose hope. Like, see, even in the worst situation, there are still opportunities for action. So that's what all. Well, that is what we feel. So
Yeah, I think you not only answered, but you put in so much more information added to it. I think we are all looking at that particular, you know, collective movement or going forward with joining hands and things like that. That's a big message for all of us. We have Jagannath sir. Sir, please unmute yourself and you may please speak. Sir.
yes,
Raghunath sir, extremely thankful to you. I am Professor Jagannatha, formerly scientist engineer ISRO, and
okay,
you gave me some three very important points that you must learn. That is, you mentioned about the Pondicherry Science Forum.
yes,
I just want to take 30 seconds and say that way back in 1987, funded by central government, National Council for Science and Technology, there was a big movement called Bharat Jan Vignan Jata.
yes, 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 yes,
20,000 kilometers, 5 jatas converged at Bhopal.
yes.
I was deputy from ISRO. I know friends
Oh,
from Pondicherry Science Forum.
Sundaram
Yes.
and Krishnamurthy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Right.
Radha Krishnan from KSSP and
KSSP.
Setu Rao and people from Karnataka. And
Yes,
I
yes,
want to take a clue from your interpretation. See, you at the end you mentioned the importance of citizen science activities. See, this is very
yes.
important
Yeah.
because history says whatever the tradition we have, the modern environmental hype, I'm not seeing that. You see, with whatever the training and education and the cultural setup we look at top-bottom approach. I think that is one thing which is failing us in a way.
Hmm.
Because I lived in Kukrali Lake neighborhood because we moved to Kukrali village, which is abutting the lake, 54 years back.
Okay.
And I was living in the Kukarelli vicinity, University of Mysuru, 10 years. And for
Okay.
about 250 weeks, Sundays, we have done a awareness program. And later on, ADB, the long story is a line was drawn on the Lingambudi Lake, and it became a citizens movement, and they gave about 5 crores grant to save 6 lakhs, 6 lakes in. I was involved in developing the a restoration plan.
Correct.
What I
Correct.
want to say, the citizen movement you mentioned, which involves, see, for example, just to take that point, Kukrali village itself, even today, has got hundreds of women who depend on the lake.
Okay.
And you'll be shocked to know that we used to have no sewerage system at Kukrali Lake when you came to that village. For nearly 10 years, we were going to Kukrali Lake for our defecation and ablution. You see?
Yeah.
And I remember many ladies who collected the tamarind and other, even fish. The Purnaiha Canal was flooded. They harvest the fish and sold it for jowar in tens of kilometers and many villages, and they had their livelihood for months together. You see,
Correct.
that economical dependence in the ecological issues, I think that is one thing which should come out in the citizen movement, citizens science movement. That is one point. The second point you mentioned very rightly is that dying wisdom, for example, as you mentioned, Vaidyanathan book, it was Anil Agarwal in 1997 who brought out the dying wisdom. Is the answer to Champa Madam's question. See, the dying wisdom book is one revealing thing which told us how we are killing the traditional system. We need to have life for that. The second point. The third and the last point I want to mention, today, according to me, I'm very much enlightened by the Puducherry example. There is a need for validating our wetlands approach, as you said, Ramsay and all. I'm a student and a participant of the ILEC, International Lake Environment Committee of UNEP. 1995, me and my wife were invited. Again, 2019, we went. You see what is happening? We are not validating to the ILEC, International Lake Environment Committee, which is a repository of 100 years wetlands management. And I think there we are having a self-defeat approach. I keep on harping on this, but nobody listens. See, this top-bottom approach may not help us in the long term. And the last thing I would like to tell you, please do not underestimate the community participation. During 1990s, when Chiranjeev Singh, one of our great bureaucrats in Karnataka, when he was the divisional commissioner, he invited for RCDP for Mysuru.
Okay.
You see, their 68 objections were compiled by 28 citizens. 8 workshops were held at JC. And it was serialized in the start of Mysuru. You see, for about a month or so. See, what is happening? Our present generation is not looking at the past heritage of this community participation. See, these superficial things are not going to help. And I'm extremely thankful, Raghu. May your tribe grow, and we are in the same boat in a way. So I look forward for your.
I think we are a larger collective also. So I've visited Kukrahalli Lake also.
No, I want to. I'm sorry. I remembered now. You mentioned the Nirganti or to be Dalit. See, in Maharashtra.
Yeah.
In Karnataka, we have got Nirgar or Nirganti. And we do have water users association in Karnataka also. But are you having any issues like a Manwad water, water where Ambedkar went and, touched the water and prevented the untouchability practices in the water, That is a great movement.
Yeah.
By next year, by next year it will be celebrating 100 years to make the Dalits touch water. You see?
So, it's very interesting to see. So when we went back into history, what we saw was that most of this untouchability all started around, say, 7th, 8th century. Before that, I think this system was not there. This is very interesting information. So currently there is a lot of archaeological thing happening about the Buddhist traditions, and I know you heard about the Keeladi excavation and Purnaiha river excavations, all that. So it all points to the rich, I think, fabric of the communities. I think untouchability all came much later. So earlier, if you go back to the Sangam literature, there was no mention of God also. So even the Keeladi sites never mentions of any idols or any religion per se. So maybe this was all man-made, came much later. So in one of the villages, there was a Nirkati who was a Dalit, and he was acceptable. He could enter into any landlord's house, and
Yeah.
he was respected. So
Especially the one you mentioned about the acreage wise contribution given for his service is wonderful best practice.
that used to be
Uh,
the practice across Tamil Nadu also, I think.
but also we have the religious benefits, like you see, when Ramanujacharya came from Tamil Nadu, and many of the Dalits and the downtrodden were made Iyengars, you see, in Karnataka. That was a social
Okay.
transformation. That
Yes.
things are happening in Karnataka also, like 12th
Okay,
century
okay.
Baswa movement and things like that. Anyway, extremely thankful to you. I'm having another
Yeah, yeah.
webinar. I'll join sometime later. Okay.
Sure, right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jagannath sir, for adding in information. It today also happens to be World Water Day, and this year's theme was water and gender, with the campaign slogan "Where water flows, equality grows." So I think that is another information that we would like to share. And campaign highlights that the global water crisis disproportionately impacts women and girls, calling for their equal leadership, voice, and representation in water management and decision making to achieve SDG goal 5 and 6. And you also mentioned through your fest you are trying to keep the women and the school kids part of the festival, so that the wisdom comes as joining hands. So Ravi sir, would you all need to add the end note, please?
Oh, thank you. That was a very revealing talk and very apt. I think there is a lot more to learn from your experience, Raghu.
Come to
Particularly your fest
Puducherry.
also, that itself will make a topic for another
Yes.
discussion. We will be looking forward to that. Thank you, Raghu.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And also, one last thing, airy deity you mentioned, that was another interesting information. I was in Coimbatore for 5 years. So I was, when we were doing up and down Mysore, Coimbatore, always looked at Kavaladaivam. So we are also trying to explore the importance of all these villages, how they really behaved and how different are they from. So we are trying to look at that, and you added this information. So maybe as a comparison, it will be interesting to for us also to see it. And thank you so much, Raghunath sir. I think today we've learned so many information, not only in terms of knowledge, I think even the history, the narration, I think you put it very simply, but very effectively. So thanks a lot. Please do come to Mysore, and we are waiting to come to Pondicherry now.
Of course, yeah. Always
Yes.
welcome. Yeah.
Yeah. And on behalf of the organizing committee, Mysuru Water Forum, Mysore School of Architecture, and Aranya Outreach, we thank all the participants and our expert, today's expert Raghunath sir also. A very good evening to one and all. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.